Welcome back to West Texas View.
We have two people from the Samaritan Counseling Center. You met Annabelle just before the first segment, but joining us now is Becky Cagle, and she's one of the licensed professional counselors, and she's going to be talking a little bit more about specific counseling sessions. And before we get started, I want Annabelle and Becky to tell a little bit about yourselves and how you came to this job. Let's start with you, Annabelle.
Okay, I grew up in West Texas. I've lived in Midland my whole life, except for the last couple of years. My husband was in grad school, and we moved back in July, and there was a position open at Samaritan Counseling as the Director of Development. So I happily hopped on board and have loved every minute of it.
And you had never worked or been associated with a counseling center, so you've really been learning a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
You went from marketing to learning about this so that you could market it.
Yes, ma'am. So it's been a great change, but definitely a learning experience.
And Becky, tell about you.
Well, I am a licensed professional counselor. I am originally from Midland, Odessa. I began my career back when I was working on my bachelor's degree. One of my first jobs was in a suicide prevention, crisis intervention hotline, and that set the tone for the rest of my career. I kind of grew up in the field of trauma, working battered women's shelters, rape crisis centers, and as we were working on this specific trauma type situation, we began to see the Vietnam veterans come back, and we noticed the commonality. And so I've been working in the field where we diagnosed and came up with an actual diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. So this became my focus in my practice. The way I landed at Samaritan is I have always believed that you need to have a full mind, body, and spirit component for true healing. And so I've used Samaritan for the last 7 years as the base of my mission for my full-time counseling experience.
And explain exactly what is a licensed professional counselor. Are you licensed by the state, by the college that you did your training in?
Okay, we are licensed by the state of Texas. It's an intensive program. You have to have at least a master's. My master's is in clinical psychology. And you do 3,000 intern hours while you're working towards getting a full license. It just happens that a year of my intern service was at Samaritan, which is how we found each other. But you do have to go through intensive training. We're officially a psychotherapist. I always say, don't worry, the psycho means me. But what we do is intensive counseling and therapy.
And you have continuing education to keep your license up to date.
Yes.
And so it is a profession that you're glad you went into.
Absolutely, I chose it. Yes, I did.
Great. All right. Now let's finish a little bit about fundraising, and because we could not operate the Samaritan Counseling Center if people couldn't pay for their counseling, and most private individuals cannot pay, and they need help.
Right. Well, Samaritan is a 501c nonprofit, and so most of our daily operations, our client assistance fund, they're all supported by grants, and also from our Family of the Year event. In 2013, our Family of the Year event raised almost $150,000. And in 2014, it will be our 20th annual Family of the Year event. So we're really looking forward to that.
And I can remember way back when we had the first one, and there was so much excitement about that idea.
It's a great way to honor families across the community who have done great things, philanthropically, and supported the community, supported financially, and their churches. So it's a great way to honor families. And then we also have a spring appeal. Last year we auctioned off a trip to Africa, and we made a safari, and we raised almost $10,000.
Wow.
So.
And that goes a long way.
That goes a long way.
In doing paying for the cost of therapy.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
I want us to go from there to get into the programs and services. And so, Becky, talk about the counseling services that we offer.
Okay, it is. I love the way we get to approach at Samaritan. We help people, like you said, of all ages, from the children, the youngest children, to senior citizens. We have excellent play therapists. One of the things we know about children is they express their emotions through their play. They don't have the vocabulary or the brain development yet to express it verbally, but through play, a child can express and work out issues that are deep or from different experiences. So that's an awesome program that we have.
And one of the questions that was asked after a program that we did a few years ago was, what in the world does a little child need therapy or counseling for? But their little mind is just as traumatized by violence, by a family divorce, by abuse in the home, and all of those kinds of things. Fire, one of the families that I remember, their house caught on fire and someone was killed in the house, and that little child had nightmares, just terrible violent nightmares.
I'm always having to tell people, if you're having trouble dealing with it, if you're finding yourself struggling through the day, imagine a child. They don't have the maturity that you have.
They don't have the vocabulary to deal with it. They don't have the experience to deal with it. Oh, yeah.
So the impact on them can be even greater.
And so about how much do you think is children's counseling, marriage and family relationships? Do you have any idea of how it's kind of broken down?
Well, from what I can tell, we're pretty good at seeing a little of everything. For Cheryl, who is our play therapist, she sees a majority of children. Myself, I see adolescents, women, men, and adults mostly, in family and marriage. So it's a mix.
Well, I actually have some statistics that Annabelle gave me, and she said 30% of the clients are couples who need marriage counselors, and 33 are clients in domestic violence issues, women and children mostly. So here we're talking about children. So when you break it down, you're looking at 63%. Which is 2/3 are in just those two areas alone.
Yeah.
And when we say that premarital counseling, I had forgotten that we did premarital counseling.
Oh, I'm so for that. It would be great to do prevention and set up marriages to be healthy before they start.
Instead, we're going to have to put our pencil down and start back in just a minute. We'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.